All right, so why don't we get started? I'm Trent Morrow, owner of L&B Counseling. This is Behind the Door series number 16. As always, thank you for being here. It's something we do every Thursday at 11 o'clock. Just a way for us to provide information to our caregivers and clients out there, as well as maybe other therapists, and sharing some of the techniques that we use. Hopefully, you can understand some of the things that we're doing. If you're a caregiver, when your kids come to the office, or maybe they're on a Zoom call or Google Meets with us. Um, and so you can just kind of understand some of the things that we're doing and how we're doing them. And as always, if we are welcome to hear any information or questions or subjects that you're interested in. Right now, we're doing a pandemic parenting series at a lot of the local schools and through CMS and Union County. So if you happen to see this, and tomorrow we're doing one at Rayview Elementary. I know we have a couple coming up next week at South Charlotte Middle and some other elementary schools. So if you happen to be in that Zoom attendance, the content will be different than what we're doing today, and there'll be some of the things that we've done in the past through the Behind Door series that we'll sprinkle in, but for the most part, it'll be very unique to what we do or what you've seen before. Today's topic is we're going to talk about clarity breaks, and I'm just coming off vacation, so I think it's a pretty apt topic for me to talk about. Got to do some fun and interesting things. The things I probably one of the couple of things that I love the most is just being up in the mountains and running in the mountains and climbing the mountains, and doing hard things. But one of the things I noticed today is since I've been off, you kind of get out of that rhythm. And it's great to have a clarity break. So I'm going to talk about what goes on before you take a clarity break, why you need to take a clarity break, and then maybe how to do some clarity breaks. Essentially, and we've talked about this at least recently, is when you're doing hard things, whether you're learning something or giving it a hard effort, whether it's your kiddos doing something at school or something yourself, maybe teaching your kiddos how to do particular subjects, common core subjects. I know those can be challenging for us at our house because the way that they're learning things isn't the way that we learned it, even though we may come to the same answer. How they get there is different than how we get there, and I know we're all kind of dealing with that right now during this that pandemic, and having to teach kids, sometimes aiding them, especially our younger kids. So those things are difficult and they're hard. That's when you get that shot up of adrenaline and get that tension, and sometimes a little irritation, frustration. But that's generally a good signal that, hey, this is hard and it's going to require some effort. And then you usually get to the task, and that's good. You can't do that all day. Obviously, like we've talked about, you do there is a byproduct and some consequences from continuing to run at that level. We talked about two Behind the Door series ago, so I'm not going to go a lot of detail about that. But um, those things are required, and then the idea is that you take time off. That time off could be a couple minutes, it could be a couple hours, couple days, vacation, whatever the case may be. So it is required to have that. We call them clarity breaks because it's supposed to kind of help your mind clear, and not be so hyper focused on the task at hand. That's why 2 times ago we said, don't go from doing something very difficult to also now just picking up your phone and scrolling through, because the mind doesn't just generally shut off because it's still focused on this minute task. And so you need to give it greater awareness, panoramic vision to get that part of your brain to turn off. That allows you to gain clarity and allows your brain just to kind of ramp down. So when the next challenge comes, you ramp back up. So it's important to have those breaks so your brain, I'll say it again, so your brain can ramp down, because something's going to come. We don't always know what it is. Sometimes we plan for it, but sometimes we don't. Something's going to come that's going to require a really great effort. And it's going to spark up those neurochemicals, and more likely you'll get it done. The same's true for your kids. I think the schools are trying to give more breaks between that synchronous and asynchronous learning, and just breaks in between classes than they normally would give. So your child or your teenager can have a clarity break until it's time to get back on the screen and look at the next teacher presentation video, whatever the case may be. That's why it's important during those clarity breaks to make sure that they're not getting on their electronics and their phones as much as possible, so their brain has that chance to reset. Um, so you can do that the 4 minutes in between classes. They're giving them some longer lunches. Hopefully you're taking some more time for yourself in between these classes that you may be helping them with or doing your own work. And that's why it's like we talked about a couple times ago, just to kind of have that hard cap time of how long you're going to work on something and then how long in the day are you going to work. And I would say do the same for your kids. So how long are they going to work on something? It's generally set by the schools, but how long they're going to work till is how long are they going to work on the homework? Is it going to be 6 o'clock? Is it going to be 8 o'clock? Some kids put things off, and sometimes adults do too, and so things just kind of stack up, and then you get towards the end of the evening, and there's a lot to do. That's not the best time to do that, as we've talked about before when it comes to sleep. So it's important to take those breaks. The reason for that is if you go on a break, let's say it's a day, a week, whatever your vacation may be, and you come back, you're refreshed. Well, before you went on it, maybe you were feeling run down. Well, that's just burnout, right? So simply said is you take a break, whatever that break is, and then when you get back to the task at hand, so like myself, when I come back into the office today, like I'm ready to go and can pick up right where I left off. That just means it's burnout. And so, taking a clarity break will take care of that. The other part, and they talk a lot about this in our field, is compassion fatigue. But you can relate this as a parent, you can relate this to teaching, you can relate this to doing your own work in whatever field you're in. Compassion fatigue is if you're kind of feeling run down, you take that break, whatever that break may be, maybe it's a week, a long weekend, a week, maybe even longer, and you come back and it's like today, I'll use me as a personal reference, and this isn't true for me, but just as an example, if I came back today and I'm feeling just as run down as before I went on my break, or not feeling like I have the energy to give to the project, the task, in my case, to maybe to a client or something that I'm working on, well, that's compassion fatigue. That's a whole nother kind of set of problems. And so if you're experiencing compassion fatigue versus burnout, then that's probably something that you need to do some searching on. You may need to go talk to someone. You may just need to talk to your support system, your care group, to help you work through kind of what's going on, because you should feel refreshed after a clarity break. You should feel refreshed after, 4 minutes or so of maybe doing math and now you're transitioning into science, or you did a project here and on a call and now you got a little break and now you transition to the next thing. So your kind of mental acuity should be there. If it's not and you're feeling run down, especially after, let's say, a longer break, a day, a couple of days, a week, then there may be something else going on. So you need to pay attention to that. We can't keep running and running and running, as a lot of people think, but you have to have those breaks. And so it's really important for the brain to be able to rest. Some of your day, like we talked about, is just, it's nominal stuff. I mean, it's stuff that you're doing automatically. You're not even necessarily thinking about it. It just happens. And then there's other parts of your day where it's requiring great focus and attention. And so, not that you're going to measure that out over time, but generally speaking, it should be like a 2-to-1 ratio. So if you're doing something really, really hard, then you should rest twice as long. So if you're working hard for 20 minutes, you rest for 40 minutes. I know that's not always ideal and always possible, but you also have to keep in mind that there's some things that you're doing that aren't requiring that much of a fire from your brain. Your kids too. I mean, there's some things that they're doing that they're really good at, and there's other things that require great attention, like language development, those kind of things. So if you can, if at all possible, be at least conscious of that ratio of 2-to-1, and try to get that rest. It goes back to the sleep that we talked about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Really important to get that sleep. Allows your brain to recharge. Make sure you get it at the right time. I won't go into all that. That's on one of the Behind the Door series that you can go and look and get more information about that if you're new to today or just haven't seen that episode. But really important to take those breaks like we talked about, and then what we do and how you do it, it doesn't matter so much. It's more just you need to change your field of vision and you need to unplug. when you're going to take those clarity breaks. So it may be, like we've talked about with Sade talking about maybe doing some mindfulness activities. You can do some breathing activities. Meditation is great for unplugging and taking a clarity break. There's hypnosis, not like stage hypnosis, but there's hypnosis. And a lot of these resources are free and on YouTube. So, you can listen to them as you're walking. You can do them laying there in bed or in your room. And I would encourage you to do it with your kids to teach them how to take these clarity breaks. They're not wired to do it. They might be wired to pick up their phone every time it's a change class over. It seems like a lot of human development now is let me reach for the phone when there's boredom, when there's a break. And so it doesn't give the brain, like I said, doesn't give the brain enough downtime to recover and get that true clarity to get on to the next hard effort. There's things that you can do on a daily basis, more of a maintenance. Let's call it yoga or mindfulness or meditation or even that hypnosis. And then there's things that we talked about before, like those breathing activities that will give you quick clarity if you're needing something in a pinch to kind of get you through, to get your mind to reset and calm down. So that deep breath in followed by another gasp and then letting it out through the mouth. So a deep breath in through the nose and then a gasp. We go. And you'll need to do that a couple of times, but that will give you clarity. So you do those as needed, and then I would encourage you to do the other ones that we talked about more on a maintenance schedule. So something that you do on a daily practice, and it doesn't need to be very long, but it allows your brain to reset. There's a lot of data that comes from mindfulness and meditation as far as helping people deal with things and helping their brain just rest so it's ready for the next thing. If you were a runner, and I can relate as a runner, like you just wouldn't go hard every day, and the workout wouldn't just last for hours. You'd have breaks in between. Some days are most days are actually a lot easier, and you usually have 2 hard days in a week in a training block. That's because the body needs that rest, needs that recovery, so it can do the hard effort. And so the brain is no different. The brain is even more complex, obviously, like we've talked about, and it needs that more so than the body. We just don't think of it that way because we're just so enamored with go, 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 go that we need to be very mindful and incorporate, these clarities into our day, into our week, and not just on vacation and think you'll be recharged. Just kind of a sidebar on vacation. The reason why you may get sick on vacation or on breaks or things like that is because your immune system actually does really well when it's doing these hard efforts because adrenaline's a great buffer and there's just different hormones and neurochemicals they distribute throughout your body that meant to keep you healthy. And so when you have a break, those things kind of go offline, which makes you more susceptible to getting sick. That's why people, when they retire, the first year after retirement is a year of great risk because they've gone from like go, 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 doing hard things and keeping in a rhythm and a schedule, and then that kind of goes offline. And so, you can't have too much of a clarity break. You need hard effort. It goes back to that 2-to-1 ratio. So you need to do hard things. You can't just kind of chill all the time. And so that's what happens during retirement. So, you can't go to one end too far and too far on the other end of, burning all the time, or over here just being, having clarity breaks all the time. You got to find that sweet spot, and going back to that 2-to-1 is a sweet spot if you can get it. I know our lives are busy and there's things going on all the time, so it makes it more difficult to do so. But it's just important to take that break. And going back to scheduling, you probably in the beginning are going to have to put it into your calendar, put it into an alarm of some sort to remind you to do it until you start practicing for 2 or 3 months and it gets more automated, like we talked about before. So hopefully that helps. I encourage everyone to do that. It's very, very, very important for your brain. And it's rounding up here at about 16 minutes. Always try to be conscious of your time. So you can take a clarity break. I can take a clarity break before I get on to my next thing. Next week, Sade will be here, and she'll be sharing some of her great insight and tools. So please look out for her on next Thursday at 11 o'clock on Facebook Live. And if there are things that you need from us, please reach out. We'd be happy to talk about any of the information in more detail. And also, if there's things you're wanting to know more about, if it feels like it's something that it's a good fit for us and kind of in our wheelhouse of information, then we'd be happy to talk about it. All right. Hope you all have a great Thursday and stay healthy. Bye.